right, guys, welcome to the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. Actually, it's a combination of two. I got a guest on. Her name is Kate Lyman. She owns a nutrition company. She's a nutrition coach. Same position I am as far as changing the mindset. Life isn't about perfection. It's about how to be progressive in your health and your nutrition. Speaking of perfection, let's talk about imperfect and how imperfect can actually be something positive. So I want to give a shout out to one of my podcast partners called Imperfect Foods. And I'm sure you may have heard of them. They have a unique system and how they utilize food that comes, they don't make it to the market as far as its aesthetic value may not be the perfect shiny apple or the perfect colored green grapes, but they don't lack in the nutrition. They don't lack in the resource that comes out of those foods. So they have found a way to be the middleman in gleaning those imperfect foods and still create ways to feed people that really need that nutrition. Not only that, they sell at a discounted price and they can send it right to your doorway. Go to the website at imperfectfood.com. You can find out how you can get this delivered to you, kind of see where all the produce comes from, and support the overall system of sustainability practice and not food wastage. Find them also on Instagram at Imperfect Foods. Before I jump on to that introducing you to Kate and having a great conversation, one thing that I will bring to the forefront is when it comes to like these conversations that we have. Think about whenever you try to make change, whenever you want to make change, what do? You make these promises to yourself that you have these set of rules that you're going to abide by, that you're going to follow. And then you start putting them in place, the actions in place. And then you find that sometimes the ball slips or things doesn't come. You don't give yourself, do it 100% of what you promise yourself. So typically what happens? Well, what happens is that you feel bad about it, but also you feel bad because you start creating these internal conversations that's not really self-serving. We always want to strive to be better people and to make better choices for ourselves and for our health. But if we don't make it, what are we telling ourselves that stops us from thinking that we actually can? I call it self-sabotage because sometimes we unconsciously self-sabotage ourselves when we really want to meet a particular goal. I don't know, sometimes it's just fear that we really be successful this time, or is it too nerve-wracking to sit in this new space that I really, really want to sit in? Is it too uncomfortable? So am I going to find small ways to keep me back to where I'm at least still in my comfortable spot? But that comfortable spot puts you in a space that you start from ground zero again. And a lot of times we talk ourselves back to the first step, to the first stage of our change. And we end up sitting there and staying there because it just sometimes feels more comfortable. But that comes from that internal conversation because sometimes we don't have the confidence to really make those steps forward and keep them moving forward. So I always say that in order for you to put action behind what you're wanting to change, it all comes from the way you think. It all comes from how we change in that internal conversation, what we're saying to ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and when it comes to, do we really feel that we can really do it? Now, I agree. If you're starting something new that you really have not really experienced before, you're going to have doubt. Doubt is normal, but you also want to not let that doubt slow you down. So what are some of the language that you can change when you're wanting to make real change in your life? And you really, really want to make it to where you're comfortable living there. I'll give you a couple of examples. A lot of times I've had clients that tell me they know that they really can't change their body because they haven't done it before, or they've seen everyone else change with them. And so they have already set themselves up for failure. They've already self-sabotaged themselves to tell themselves they can't do it. So now it's like them trying to prove to themselves that they can do it, but they really feel they can't. So they naturally just don't do it. So yes, they never change because they already have set themselves up to tell themselves that they can't do it. I know when it comes to change, it's all about learning how to enfold your change into how you or want to, how do you want to change to where the conversation starts changing? Let's say you just start switching up your snacks and bringing in fruit. The whole idea behind that is just how can you have that internal conversation of, I'm just going to start bringing something that's just healthy for my body into my life. Just start there. We're not deciding what it looks like as far as what it should be, what it shouldn't, but definitely what something healthy means. How can you just start that conversation with yourself and say, I'm just going to implement what's healthy in my life when it comes to certain foods. I'm going to start bringing water in because I want to just make sure my body gets the fluids that it needs to be, to allow my body to do what it needs to do. How about I'm just going to start moving more because I just want to give my body the movement that it needs. Your body loves to move. Your body loves to eat healthy food. And so when it comes to internal conversation, it's not to where you already setting yourself up for failure, but how can you start talking to yourself to where you're taking small steps, you're recognizing those steps, you're reflecting it as it's a positive step forward. It may not be a big grandiose step. It doesn't need to be a grandiose step. One simple step is better than no steps at all. Or one simple step takes you to the next simple step. And you keep making those simple steps and allow yourself to not tell yourself, oh, just wait till the next time, or, it's too hard, you might as well not do it. No, it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to really be too hard either. Instead of looking at things as a challenge, how can you start looking at things as an opportunity to practice making positive steps, opportunity to tell yourself a different story, I do believe in myself. I want the best for myself. So how can my actions start reflecting that? Well, here we go back to the actions. So your actions will be what creates that change. But starting with the mindset, creating the action is what's going to create that change. I always say, in order to change, it takes change. So in order to change where you want to be, it's going to take change in your actions. But you will always find yourself right back where you started if you don't change that internal conversation that you have with yourself. If you're deciding to take out, have a little bit minimal sweets or try to let go of the soda, what's the reason behind that? Reason behind it is because you just don't want to give your body those foods. You just don't want to you want to just put yourself in a position where you feel miserable because you just want to make sure you make these goals, or you want to tell yourself, I'm just going to take some of these things away that my body really doesn't need and bring in something that gives my body what it needs. So swap the sodas out for water, swap the sodas out for tea, swap the chips out, swap the candy out for fruit, swap it out for pretzels. So you're not really doing anything. You're actually doing positive things to your body, which create those positive conversations. Because now when you start bringing in the water, you start bringing in the pretzels, start bringing in the fruit, you start bringing in things that are self-serving, and that starts changing the conversation too. Because now you're telling yourself, you're giving your body the water and the pretzels and the fruit, because you're giving your body what it needs. And it's also showing that you have the ability to continue to move forward in your change. So look at the choice that you make as an act of self-care, self-love, not self-sabotage. And by doing that, you'll be able to start changing the internal conversation in your head. You'll be able to change those actions into positive steps. And then you'll see the beauty of how that kind of snowballs within itself, and you can continue to move forward in your change of life. So again, take some of these nuggets away, think through it. Obviously, there's no cookie cutter way to approach this, but you got to figure out what works for you and just start there. Don't compare yourself to the next person next to you, to your right, to your left. You start where you feel most comfortable, and you begin that change, and you let that change. Let the action that reflects the change in your conversation just keep moving that ball forward instead of moving backwards. So again, share this to those you know. I know this conversation we have with Kate is going to reflect a lot of this, the concepts that I'm talking about now. So stay tuned to listen to our great conversation. Okay, guys, I have an exciting guest today with me. Her name is Kate Lyman. She is the owner. Oh, let me introduce myself first. So this is Welcome to the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. I am your host, Rashonda Thornton, just in case you didn't know. I was so excited to talk about Kate. I forgot about myself. But let me tell you a little bit about Kate and her company. She is the owner of Kate Lyman Nutrition, who have built a dynamic nutrition consultation coaching business, not only for herself, but she actually has a team of coaches as well. And they all have a passion for helping people to redefine their relationship with food and with themselves and nutrition. These people have been there. They get it. And so she has really been intentional in her choices, who she's built around her. Just to give you a little bit of insight of the work she's done, she has congratulated her 5-year plus time as far as building this organization. And within that, she has worked with over 100 people to change their bodies, not just their bodies, but their eating habits, and really kind of going against the grain when it comes to the dietings and the myths behind it. So I want to welcome you, Kate, to this particular podcast. You're the perfect guest because, like I say, we're just speaking the same thing, just slightly different languages, but it's always great to have someone that sees the same vision and has the same mission to create that change as I do. So welcome to the podcast show, Kate.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited for our conversation.
Yeah. No. And again, the more I read, I just smiled like, all right, because it just, we can just like cut the mic and just have the conversation over a cup of tea and just kind of dig into it, because it's such a phenomenon just how what I feel is that this is what I say all the time, and I'm definitely going to bring you into the conversation. But you know how we always say, learn something different or learn something new when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah.
You know what? It's not even. It's more so of like it's not even giving you a new perspective, like giving you just a total perspective that you just never knew about. It's really about opening your eyes to a way of thinking that has not been tapped into. And it's not easy, but we know, as you know, it's the reason why we do what we do, because we know what's on the other end of that. We know how it feels to be on the other end of that. So I know that you have been in the fitness industry for a long time, and then you're coupling up like the nutrition component. Kind of tell me like your own personal journey, like how you got to where you got and how you just came to the light of like, this is what I need to do, and this is how I want to help people change and be happier in their lives.
Yeah, I didn't think this would be it, honestly, and I think a lot of us are in the same boat. And I started working kind of in the fitness industry in general when I was in high school. I was a CrossFit trainer, and so when I was 17, I went and got my CrossFit L1, and I started training at a CrossFit gym. This is like a long time ago, and I did that through college. And at the same time, I was taking exercise science classes. That was my undergrad major, and really loved it. I always had these intentions of going into the medical field, and I would since 5th grade, I was just set on it. And just experience and partially my experience working in fitness kind of helped me shift my goals more towards working in prevention. So I was taking nutrition courses, I was learning a lot, and I always thought fitness, this that I'm doing is kind of like just how I make my money to pay for school. This is not a real career, because being a doctor is a real career, and it's so silly now, but that's really how I felt. And so as I was learning more about nutrition and also so much experimentation with my own nutrition, I had been chronic dieter, the biggest yo-yo dieter ever, and started working with my own nutrition coach. So these personal experiences and knowledge from classes and stuff, I started kind of delving more into the world of nutrition. And it started with seminars at my gym. And then came clients for free or for $50 a month or things like that. And it built up into me thinking, I really love doing this. And I had shifted course. I ended up going to graduate school for a master's in public health with a focus on nutrition education research. And so I was kind of doing more of this work I loved, thinking, now I'm going to be a professor, because that's a real job. But
you're still trying to find a real job.
I'm still trying, that's going to be a real job. And at the same time, I started Kate Lyman Nutrition. I had a website. I had paying clients. I was, working with real clients, making real change. I was learning a lot about them. I was learning a lot about what made me the best coach possible. And I was working in health behavior theory research, and that was helping me so much in this work with clients. And still it was just side gig. This is awesome. I love doing this, but I love it too much for this to ever be a career. Mm-hmm. And so then I went to a PhD program, and I was I'm going to be a doctor. Finally, it looks different, but this is what I'm going to do. And I came to a point where I had to choose between school and continuing school, because the workload and the research load was just too great. And Kate Lyman Nutrition having this coaching business, and it was actually a really hard decision. And I was well, I guess school, because that's what makes me a doctor. That's the real job. And then obviously I went the other way, and I made a really scary choice, and it wasn't easy at the time, but, I was okay, well, let me see if I can do this full time. And so I have done it full time. And yeah. I up until that point, I just genuinely loved it too much to think that could be a real job. And it it has been all of my clients. It's been the clients I've worked with. It's been the incredible changes I've seen them make. And rarely is it ever a physical change that they celebrate the most and that I celebrate the most. It's, you know, kind of what you were alluding to, these like mindset shifts, this reframing their relationship with food, this understanding of food as not just fuel, because it's so much more than that. It's cultural, it's emotional, but as something that can help us rather than hurt us, and our diet as something that aids us through life and allows us to enjoy life more, and isn't something that we are like chained to and suffering through.
Yeah. No, I love that concept, and I just want to go back to what you were saying, because when you think about, we have our like preconceived idea of who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do on this earth, and it's always kind of fixated across like what's been molded around us, what we think our ideal success is, and so we just, no matter, we're still trying to strive to be there until you get to a point like, you know what, when it comes to my happiness and it comes to what I see myself, who I am, what represents me, is it really just those letters, or is it just position I would be in to create the change that I really want to change, you know? And you kind of are able to kind of make that decision, and it may take a little bit of a struggle, but I guarantee you don't regret the choice that you made, you know? And that's big, because you always want to know like why people do what they do. And, you know, and it's weird to feel like, can I love what I do every day?
Yeah.
And still make a living off of it. But the love is really not even about like how it's serving you. You know, it's the love is how are you able to serve those others that you have seen or that you know are in those particular positions. So like, I just want to say I commend you for that, because it takes guts to start your own practice and go against the grain and create your own approach to nutrition. And obviously I can say the same. That's kind of why like I'm hearing your story, and I hear myself in it too, because I wanted to get all the different degrees, because, you know, I'm going to school, I'm academia, you know, but I own a little business on the side, but then that just blows up, and you can't deny that, you know? So, I know you mentioned, you know, and even I read like a part of your headlines, you know, you're talking about, you know, it's not just the body, it's the mindset, and, you know, creating a lifestyle out of it. And that's kind of the ongoing thread that I've seen in your messaging, even on your social media. It's about changing the body and the mindset through nutrition. You know, like you said, nutrition is more than just, it's not just food, it's not just fuel. It's actually, I'm gonna let you tell your perspective, because I can go on my own gamut of what I see nutrition as, but how do you see nutrition as it plays a role in a person's way that they can convert into a life that's self-serving to them?
Well, I think it's probably the same as yours, because we're so on the same page. But, you know, I teach and coach and I guess share this idea of flexible nutrition, and that flexible nutrition isn't necessarily like just the flexibility in our food choices, although that's so important, you know, to break free of that idea of good foods and bad foods, and the idea that we have to eat clean, and, you know, got air quotes here, and the idea that we have to stick to a specific like restrictive set of diet rules in order to be successful in any body composition changes we have. So I'm not talking just flexibility in our food choices, but flexibility in our strategies. Like, there is no one right way to manage your nutrition. There might be a best way for the current circumstances you're in, but that's not going to be true across your whole life. That's probably not going to be true across your whole year. You know, if there's anything we can take away from this crazy year of 2020, it's like things change and circumstances change, and we can't just rely on being in the same routine, because that routine will change. So how do we adjust our goals, adjust our approach to those goals, and adjust our flexibility with ourselves as well, in order to kind of reroute and redirect. And I believe that so strongly, this idea of flexibility and idea of like having a little more balance in our food and our approach to food really keeps us from that all or nothing mentality that is so destructive. The idea that we have to be like perfect, spot on with our nutrition or our fitness or whatever it is that we're talking about, or, you know, we kind of spin into screw it mode and nothing matters, and we're just stuck in this cycle of like perfectionism that's just crushing us, and leaving us spinning our wheels without going anywhere.
Yeah, and you know, it goes nowhere, but it still cycles to us in a negative way. Like, it's spinning away from us, but it's spinning in us in a way that you start, let's say you just promise yourself, oh, this day is going to be X, Y, Z. And then guess what? Life happens. And then that day doesn't turn out that way. And then we think that means failure because we couldn't get through that day. And if that's where I do get the concept of flexible nutrition, because life is going to bend, right? Life is going to bend, and you want to learn and develop the skill set how to bend with it. Because I use the analogy of like a roller coaster, when it comes to life, there's highs and there's lows, right? Great moments, marriage, babies, graduations, job promotions. Bad moments, sickness, COVID, loss of job, divorce. In high moments and low moments, food is there, right? It's either there for celebratory reasons, there for not so much celebratory reasons. But how can we not let food just go on this roller coaster that's up and down with our lives? Because our life is going to continue to be a roller coaster. And how can we kind of like find that balance where it's flexible to where it doesn't have to go all the way up or go all the way down, but it may bump a little bit. It don't have to be a straight line. It'd be nice. But how can you create that flexibility given a circumstance? And I think that's a great concept to have, because when you're taught diets, you're taught rules, regulations, time frames, what you can't do, these parameters, you feel like you're in a cage,
Absolutely.
And that puts you in the mindset of good or bad, the binary, good or bad, perfect or not perfect, or just completely a failure. There's no gray area. And so I like the concept of flexibility because it reflects kind of that gray area that people have to learn how to live in, to be, successful in their own personal way. So I like that concept.
Yeah, and I think it sounds simpler than it is to grasp, especially when you've been really held hostage by this idea of dieting, and you've been a chronic dieter, you've been stuck in this like perfectionism cycle. Like, it is scary to think of going outside of that. And I understand because I've been there, and I understand because I kind of found this way of being more flexible at like age 21, Yeah. So I had been dieting since high school, but there are individuals out there, men and women, who are 40s, 50s, beyond, who have been doing this for decades, and the mental, emotional, and physical toll it takes is so great. But it's also such an ingrained pattern of thinking and of being. So stepping away from that seems scary, and giving yourself permission to enjoy or to break these diet rules, it does seem scary. But
yeah,
I've never worked with someone who came out on the other end regretting the scary parts,
Yeah. And so, we're saying, and it's we know, on our NS, in the nutrition world, nutrition industry, we know we have kind of gotten pretty well versed on guiding people in where they're at and getting them to where they want to be. But for those people that don't have our base or our passion for it, what would be like some simple ways that people can learn how to create flexibility with their nutrition from your perspective?
I think a lot of it is to, first off, recognize where you're at right now. Like, look at yourself, look at the way you treat food. Like, do you subconsciously, without thinking, like, create diet rules? Are there foods you feel fear around? Are there foods you feel like, I can't have that because X, Y, Z? And then look a little deeper into why you think that is. Because, I see this so often with clients. We're working together and they're telling me they're embracing this concept of flexibility. And, we're a few weeks or months into working together, but I can still see this fear surrounding bread or a carb, or, whatever it may be. The idea of fast food, which, no, I'm never saying like eat fast food all the time, but it's also not going to kill you to have it once when you're on the road, whatever the circumstance may be. And so with them, I'm really saying, hey, like, let's have a conversation here. Why does this feel scary? It's okay that it does, but let's figure out what about it feels scary, and let's talk through that. So I think that's really important. And I think also recognizing that small behaviors do really make a big difference. With my clients, we talk a lot about minimums and non-negotiables. Like, okay, maybe they can't track their food this week, and that's so okay, because it's a temporary tool and it doesn't work in all circumstances. Why are we tracking our food? At times, it's usually to see, like, let's make sure our calorie intake matches our goals. And let's make sure that you're eating adequate protein. And let's make sure that you're getting enough fiber, whatever it is. why are we tracking? Now, how do we do that without the active tracking? Because the tracking doesn't matter, you know? So we'll talk about non-negotiables with like, well, I can still eat a vegetable with every meal. I can still have an identifiable protein with every meal, and I can still drink my water. And chances are you're doing exactly what you need to do by just sticking to those non-negotiables.
Yeah. Okay. Now you go. Like, again, we're always talking about starting simple, but like, that's how you have to start. It's not this big grandiose thing that you do. As anything, like you're in school, you go to class every day, and you learn a little bit every day, and you build upon that. And the same concept goes here, you know, when it comes to incorporate a healthy lifestyle. It's a building component. Like, you build off of it, and you have to do a little, grow, learn, evolve, do a little, grow, learn, evolve. It's you know, it's an ongoing thing. So, you know, and that's why it's called a lifestyle, because there's no period behind lifestyle. There's no end,
absolutely.
There's no ending. It's not up until this. No, it's what you do. It's like breathing. It's second nature. In order for that to happen, it has to be small steps and small changes. They have to keep changing, and it becomes more comfortable for a person to do it. I recognize in some of the imagery I've seen on your website and just with some of your coaches. What are your thoughts on like conversations that people like? I call it third person talk, when you talk about, you know, what is your body telling you? What is it your body needs? Because sometimes I think people don't connect their body with when they think through stuff. Like, I may want that, but what does my body need? Like, kind of creating that separation, or talking in third person, like, what does Rashana need, or what does Kate need? Like, I see that as kind of a few things that with some of your coaches, like, how do you see that to help people? Because to me, it's a big tool that I know that when people implement that, it just gives them another way of thinking.
That's a really good question, because I feel like I definitely underutilize that as like a coaching method and skill and conversation. And I would say those conversations come up more often when my client has pointed it out first. Do you know what I mean? Like, when they've said like, hey, I can think of doing a client check-in just this morning, and my client was at a wedding over the weekend, and we talked about, you know, let's stick to your non-negotiables. Like, you don't need to track, it's your sister's wedding. Like, you know, you're fine. Like, no, you're good. Like, you don't need to track. Like, this is why we do this. You know what to do. You're completely capable of what you need to do. And in her check-in, she had mentioned, you're right. She had mentioned, you know, I did what I needed to do. I had a little more maybe junk food or drinks and whatever, but I could tell that my body wanted what it has been getting, which is like really proper nourishment. And that doesn't mean just unprocessed whole foods all the time. It just means a good balance of, you know, what our bodies are asking for. So I feel like that conversation comes up more when the client has recognized it on their end. And from there, I'm like, okay, they're connecting these two processes, like what they need and what they're doing in their actions, and, you know, these habits we're forming. This is awesome. Like, I'm going to definitely point this out next time they're out of town or we're navigating a different situation like that.
Yeah. And what I find, especially in our society, when it's fast paced like this, and everything is all about speed and efficiency, and the quicker it means the better. So like, this doesn't fold in. It's not a part of the same. The expectation of change when it comes to your body and your health and what it takes, it's not built on speed and efficiency, you know? And so when I'm working with clients, and you, like I say, you just realize like they're pausing to connect. And with so many distractions and timetables and different stressors, we haven't really taken a moment to really connect with what we eat and connect to what our body's telling us. I always say food is just something we put in our mouth, given the time, the convenience, the taste, the smell, what we mentally have a taste for. But when it comes to nutrition is intentional, because you're seeking it. You're looking for that versus, if it's around, I'll just grab it. And that's that relationship part of like, how are we connecting what we're putting in our body? You know, pausing for a minute. And are you seeking nutrients, or are you just seeking something to satisfy the tongue? You know, and I think that all circles back into the understanding when you ask yourself a simple question, do I want that extra brownie? Yeah, but does my body need it? And I say extra brownie, which means they might have had one, right? So I'm not saying no brownies, right? I say extra brownie. So there you go. That's that balance, But if you could ask, you can pause and say, do my body really need it? And the answer. And how can you bring that question into play when you're figuring out if you should make this decision or not, versus just shutting it out? I'll deal with it later. I'll kick the can. Or today I already had a couple of drinks, so I might as well keep on going down the trail of, It's we got to get out of that whole mindset of everything has to be linked. We can break those links, but until we just allow things just keep linking on and taking us down the road of feeling failure, we're never going to get out of that cycle that you were talking about,
Yeah, and I think so much of that, like what you're talking about, is the recognizing what your body wants is just pausing and slowing down, which is so hard to do. And I'm here to tell you, from personal experience, nothing is harder than telling me to pause and take a second, I'll be the first to overlook just a 1 second pause, a deep breath to stop and think. But it's what we're talking about, these compounded behaviors. It takes time. You can't learn to listen to your body in 30 days when you've been ignoring it for 30 years, it's not going to happen. And I feel like these main breakthroughs that I see come through are generally because, the individual has recognized that this is the long game. We're playing the long game here, and then getting beyond this week I didn't see the exact progress I wanted, to recognizing where the trajectory in which we're heading is the breakthrough. And with that breakthrough comes so much more progress. And not to belittle the physical body composition changes they're seeing, because they are happening, but to recognize focusing on these long-term habits and focusing on this long game means I can maintain these changes. Mm-hmm. And it means I can understand how they happen and understand how to maintain them and understand how to align my nutrition with my goals. And so just slowing down and looking at that long-term change is so powerful.
Yeah, it's long-term. You have to think long-term, not short-term. Short-term is, let me just lose 10 pounds. Long-term is, how can I live in a life where 10 pounds is gone and never comes back? Your decisions to be based on long-term effects, not just for now. And that's another thing that we're not taught. Again, it's not you're not changing a person's mindset. You're giving them a new entire mindset. That's really what's happening, because you can't change what's already been fixated. You have to just give them something new and hope that overcomes it over time.
Yeah.
So I did some Instagram grabs, and I love your messaging, right? Because I'm always curious as to how people, I know how I do my messaging. I do my messaging of imagery, and I give imageries to my content. But I was I wonder, people wonder what was she thinking when she put that together? What's her real message behind it? So I saw a couple of yours earlier, and I wanted to just pull out a few of them and just kind of want you to give me some context to it. So you had this imagery of spectrum of flexibility, and you had mentioned something about sustainability and practices. So give me, I know we just talked about it a little bit, but what was your messaging behind that particular post, or what is that you want people to really pull out of that particular post?
That particular post was really about these fluctuations in our lives and our lifestyles and what life is asking of us, and how we have, basically what I've talked about before, how we have not only flexibility in our food choices, but flexibility in this way we approach our nutrition. And there are times where, I don't want to call it restriction, but rigidity, a little more rigidity may be necessary. A client wanting to make meet a big fat loss goal, let's freaking do it. And let's do it with adherence so that you meet that goal and we can move on to maintaining that goal, to you eating more, Mm-hmm. So that goal is going to require a little less flexibility. We still have flexibility in our food choices. We still have flexibility in our approach, but that flexibility is there a little less if we want to be efficient in this fat loss goal.
Yep, in that particular goal, yeah.
In that particular goal.
Yeah.
Now, flip to the other side, like the holidays are approaching and a lot of my clients are going to kind of shift into maintenance, the goal of maintaining the progress they've already made. So they have more flexibility, not only in their food choices, but in the flexibility to not track their food for a day, a week, a month, a party, a meal, whatever that may be. Or, to just focus on those minimums or those non-negotiables, or just focus on calories and protein, whatever that looks like. We're talking about more flexibility, but we're probably not going to see big fat loss progress because that's not the goal. But there's progress in maintaining past progress. There's progress in feeling really liberated with your food choices over the holidays and not feeling like you've gone into like screw it mode. I'll start over in January. The progress just looks different.
Yeah.
And like a big takeaway for that post was like, I do talk about flexibility so much. I do talk about, finding food freedom, but there are times when we sacrifice some of that flexibility for more efficient progress, and that is okay. Yeah. If it's short term, if it's done efficiently and done well, and if it's done safely, it's okay. I think there's nothing wrong with having those types of goals. Yeah. As long as we're not just like, like wandering through a whole year of life with these goals and like kind of sort of attacking them and then not, and life comes up and whatever. So
I say let's get there so we can live there. Let's go ahead and get there so we can freaking live there. Like, don't live your whole life trying to get to a certain number. Like, do what you need to do to get there so you can live the rest of your life there. And that's the same concept that you're just saying. Yeah. Another one I saw was and it just you said a few months ago, but you said get over the screw it mentality.
Yeah.
And I love that because people all say, oh, I'm either all in or all out. And I'm like, that's not the way you want to approach it, because that's not what life gives you. Right. It's that flexibility, it's that gray area. Get rid of that mentality that you either be perfect or you're not perfect. You're either 0 or you're 100%. Like, how can, what is it that if you can get narrowed it down to a few words, like, what do you want people to get out of it? Like, because they see it and they say, okay, I get the screw mentality, but what is the meat of it that you're messaging and saying with that particular post?
I think the meat of it is consistency over perfection gets us so much farther. It gets us so much farther to work on being consistent in daily actions, daily habits, daily behaviors, rather than focusing on today's perfect. Today, I had a brownie at the office, so it's not perfect. Screw it. Let me start over tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and it turns into let me start over Monday. Like, you're doing yourself no favors. It's not a healthy way to live. It's not sustainable for long-term changes. And it's going to get you nowhere. Like, maybe you'll meet a weight loss goal that way, but how long before you're back at square one again?
Yep. How long you're back at square one. So true. Another one I got, if your nutrition is just another form of stress, then it's not sustainable. And that's a big one, because people think, oh, to eat healthy, they just get themselves psyched up again for the 50th time to put these rules around them, which creates another web of stress. And they don't even realize that's alone itself with that mentality is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, I just posted this just a few days ago. One, because of the stress of this year and this life, and specifically last week, election week, like just the stress of it all. Thinking, actually what happened is I was working with one of my coaches and we were just working outside. It was a beautiful day. And I was kind of venting a little bit like, holy crap, like I am so stressed, just workload, but also I'm moving to a different country. And, here's the long laundry list of reasons I feel like I am panicking right now. And she's like, but how cool, that you're like still doing like, eating well and, getting to the gym and whatever. And I was like, wow, yeah, like that feels like second nature right now.
They don't even connect together.
That has to happen because that's helping me manage this stress, and like that has to happen. And wow. And she, I think she asked like, how do you think you got here? We were just like talking about it. She's in the same place, but we're just having conversation. I was like, well, it took 10 years. Like, I started this working out thing at the age of 17. I'm 20. I just turned 27. Like I've been doing this for 10 years. It took time. And so much of being successful and creating new habits is making sure they're not stressful, because no one needs more stress in their lives. And like, for example, I just had a conversation with a client last week who is brand new getting started, and they were like, this is so hard. I can't do this. I can't meal prep all my meals. And I was like, who the hell said you had to do that? Like, don't.
They already feel like it comes with this big load of responsibility.
Yeah,
which
I was like,
it comes with responsibility, but not in that way.
Right. But it doesn't have to be the most time consuming. It doesn't have to be more expensive. It doesn't have to be completely outside of what you're already doing. Maybe someone who's eating fast food 3 times a day needs to make a little more drastic changes. But for the most part, people just need to find a little more alignment with their current lifestyle and their goals. And that usually means small tweaks here and there. And like the specific client I'm talking about, I was like, okay, let's not meal prep. I don't need it. I don't like it. That would be stressful to me. I don't really like cooking. I don't like time in the kitchen. Let's talk through these 5 other things you can do that are going to get you to where you need to be, but are way less stressful, way more compatible with your specific lifestyle, and don't, cause you to want to pull your hair out.
Yeah. And what you'll find with those particular clients, it is overwhelming, especially they're not used to it. They're not confident in the kitchen. They may have not grown up to where that's a norm, or they just don't really have the time, And what you'll find, just like you said earlier, like give them a way to start to where they building that confidence, and they are actually starting to love food and want to appreciate it more. And it's like, I'm going to learn how to make this now. I'm going to make sure I'm going to take a little bit of time on a Sunday and make a couple of meals for a couple of days, not for the entire week. Just something like start somewhere, because you just start saying, hey, you got to do A plus B plus C, and they're never been exposed to it. It's going to feel like it's a big wave of change. But if you just encourage them to learn how to, you want them to want to do it, right? You really want them to want
absolutely.
To be able to prep their own foods, cook for themselves, know what they're putting in their bodies, appreciate just that whole time that they spend doing it, not just, I just don't want to do it, because then it's like if they automatically don't want to do it, they're going to feel like it's just too much. So how can those conversations be to where you say, oh, just try this and try that, and then they say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that strict. Oh, actually, I enjoy making this meal. It makes, I feel good when I make the meal. I turn my music on, and they'll start to turn into this new person that actually they're seeing it in a different way, and they make time, they want to do it versus feel like they have to do it. I think that's pretty big when it comes to those clients that do find it stressful, because it's not, if you're not used to it, it's not going to be something you just automatically want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much of that is meeting the client where they're at, because for some that's, this situation we're talking about, let's start with making 1 meal a day, and then maybe some frozen veggies and rotisserie chicken for the other meal. That's easy. You don't have to cook. Let's just try 1 meal. And on the flip side, there are sometimes clients coming from such rigidity, such diet rules, such regimented approach, that to say, hey, be flexible, have whatever you want, just make it, whatever, is going to be so overwhelming and so stressful. So let's start with a little more rigid approach and work our way from there. It's not helpful to tell someone to be flexible when flexibility is overwhelmingly scary. Mm-hmm. So I think some of that is, exactly what you're saying, and just meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. And I like you talk about, everyone has understanding that they can't compare themselves to the next person. Everyone comes from different places. Everyone has different mindsets. Everyone has different life dynamics. So there has to be, I always say, nutrition is not something we just fit ourselves into. Because, there's not, we can't fit ourselves into a diet. We can't fit ourselves into this meal plan, because our life may not line up that way. So how can we put ourselves as a part of the stock, right? As a part of the formula where nutrition is cultivated around us, and then as we change, nutrition changes. As we change, nutrition, it all kind of morphs together. And that's how I call it a marriage with nutrition, to where it's part of your life now, not just something that's kind of on the side that you got to struggle with every once in a while. You connect with it. So you have to help people to get to where they meet up, and they become one. And when it becomes one, it's just like breathing. It's second nature. It's easy to be flexible. You want to do it, and that's how real change happens, to where that's just I call it just turn to what you do. Like you said, you were stressed out about moving, you working out, still eating good. That has nothing to do with you being stressed. Nothing. And that's what you want people to be at, to where they don't connect. They're not a stress eater. They're not name calling themselves. You don't want to be in that tight, balled up relationship your rest of your life. There are ways to disconnect it, but it takes time. You got 30 years of a way of change in 30 days, not going to do it. No. So how can you help people just take the time to evolve, grow, learn, evolve, grow, and just be loving with themselves, have that balance of grace but discipline to get where they really want to be, but also know that they're not going to be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. So totally love your posts, and I like just the short snippets. It opens enough to where everyone to come from different spaces get it, but it also still puts one particular point up, like it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and I think that has to be the main takeaway. If it's not sustainable, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yep. That is so true. So we unfortunately our time is winding down. I knew this was going to happen. I was just getting into it, but I know people want to, after they hearing this conversation, they want to kind of learn more about, because not just you have a team of coaches, so you have like a pack behind you. And I went on there, they all have their different skill sets, they all have different stories, and I'm sure there's every person that goes to your website can connect with at least one or two of those coaches. So let us find out how someone can get in contact with you guys, what you guys are all about. If you have anything coming up soon, or kind of what you have under your umbrella, what's happening?
Yeah, I do. I have the best team ever. They're incredible, and I feel like our diverse backgrounds are what make us able to work with so many incredible clients as well. So I hang out a lot on Instagram. It's at KL Nutrition, and my website is KateLymanNutrition.com. You can read about all our coaches. I have you go up to the top, there's a resources tab, a bunch of free resources, a cookbook, a holiday guide, usually something relevant to the season. And what's coming up? Well, I'm about to move to Mexico. So I am, thank you. I'm so excited. It's been in the works for a long time. Well, it was a dream for a long time, and now it's happening. And just starting to get ready for new clients this coming new year. And I'm excited about it always.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Kate, there's definitely a need. And so however you land in this role of your life, you're meant to be in it. And I commend you for just being brave enough to step out there and create your own world that you can bring other people in that promotes self-care and self-love through their nutrition. So I'm happy for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Well, Kate, again, I hope everyone know you put it out there, Kate L Nutrition on Instagram.
KL.
Yep. KL Nutrition, and go to her website at KateLyman.com. Right, Kate Lyman, correct?
Nutrition.
KateLymanNutrition.com. Find her coaches, find their reason why they do what they do. They got so many different diverse ways that can help any person that's looking for that type of work. Because again, it's about sustainability. It's not about just losing a few pounds, but how can you live in that world and you're in the body that you want to be in for the rest of your life, and you have a healthy relationship with food. She's going to be a sister in another country now. She's moving over to Mexico, but she still won't be too far for those who are looking for virtual help as well. So, guys, as you're closing up, continue to share this particular podcast. If you know those that are out there that's looking for, if something is resonating to you that you know can resonate to someone else, just shoot them over the link. That's all you have to do. And that way they can find out what works for them on their own, and we can continue to help these individual people that are looking to help better their lives. So again, this is Rashonda Thornton, the Dietitian Against Diets. As always, it is never about the diet mentality. It's about how can you recreate a new relationship with food that's built on self-care and self-love and for the rest of your lives. So take care, guys, and talk to you next time. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. As we're rolling out of here, I cannot leave out of here without giving an acknowledgement to a great podcast partner who has been with me since day one. You've heard it before if you've been seeing any of these podcast shows, and if you have heard it before, my question is, I hope you have already ordered you some and brought this nutritional food into your life. And yes, I'm talking about Banner Rose. Banner Rose actually is a granola company. It is a simple granola company, and all their ingredients is composed of not just oats, not just chocolates. It's composed of seeds. It's composed of spices. It's composed of nuts. It's composed of honey. It's composed of natural ingredients that's not centered around sweetness all the time. It gives you a different twang when it comes to have something with turmeric in, or have something with a spice to it, have something with a kick to it versus always feeling like a granola has to be sweet. So it also just gives you an opportunity to diversify your granola, where you can put in other things that has a more savory taste. So has a lot of diversity in how it can be used, but it also, every ingredient that's in place inside that container is something that you can feel confident about when it comes to your nutrition and what you're getting out of it. Valuable products, valuable company. They make it easy for you. So if you're not here in St. Louis, it's a St. Louis area company. But if you're not here in St. Louis, doesn't mean that you're not able to get it, because you can go to the website at www.bannerroad.com and take a look at all the different granolas, buy different packages, holidays come around. Take advantage, help those be healthy too by ordering them a couple of canisters of Banner Rose to share the wealth and share the nutrition. So follow them also on Instagram, and they are on Facebook. They're across the board. So just look up Banner Road. You'll find what they got going on, why they do what they do, and some of the products that they have that can be brought over to you. So check them out, and then hope you guys enjoyed the show.